So let's take you back to the beginning.
Okay.
You grew up in the 1970s and 80s in Scarborough, Ontario.
That's right.
What was your upbringing like?
Well, my dad is an immigrant from Italy, and he moved into his brother's house, and my mom lived next door. So that's how they met, and then they had sex at some point, and then I was born shortly thereafter. And you know, I say we were poor as fuck, but my mom, when she was alive, used to say we weren't poor, we just didn't have any money. And there's some truth in that, you know. We had, I didn't know what poor was when I was a kid, but then as I started to get older, you realize, oh, other people like go skiing and have shit, you know. But when you're a kid, you don't really need shit. You need a few friends, and especially back then, there was no screens, there was no computers, so we just go outside and play all day, and you know, a lot of sports. I was pretty athletic as a kid. I was a boxer, I was a hockey player, played high school football. I was shit, but I was good at the other stuff. And you know, partly I think one of the things that developed as I was growing up is my imagination, because we didn't have some stuff that other people had. I mean, I had enough, but you know, at night, I would you know, sort of have these. I watched a lot of TV and movies, and I read a lot of books, and sort of just fantasized that I was characters in the story. And you know, I think like most kids, maybe, I don't know, lying in my bed and being a fucking cop, or you know, like being on a horse and stuff I would never actually do. But I think the seeds of what I do now probably were planted back then, you know, just sort of escapism from within rather than as a viewer. Mm.
So you were playing these little roles in your imagination at that time.
Yeah. I think I spent a lot of time wanting to be anything but me. You know what I mean? Like everything, not everything, but things look interesting that you don't have or you don't know, or especially when you're young. You know, I'm still very experience driven. You know, I've had a lot of experiences, good and bad, but you know, I'm not a guy I didn't grow up going on vacations with my family or anything, so I'm like terrible fucking guy to travel with, because I don't really want to do anything. You know, I'm just like, yeah, okay. People like to sit on a beach and relax, and I'm like, fuck this, you know. Like, I used to go to my girlfriend's cottage, her family, and you know, people just enjoy being at a cottage, and I'm like, can I fucking paint something or do something? I like to be doing, you know. So yeah, I forgot the question.
No, it's okay. It was a big contrast though, because you went on to go to the University of Toronto to study English.
Yeah, I was a good student. I always got good grades. I didn't put a lot of effort into it. I have a certain kind of smarts, like stuff's just stuck in my head.
Stuff in my head. I just can't get it out.
Yeah, well, you know, like for tests and whatever. I didn't have to study a lot, and I caught on to concepts pretty easily. And in high school, I had an English teacher named Don Tricello, who I stayed in touch with for years, and I should try to look him up again soon. But he really turned me on to English literature and how to read and how to interpret and how to identify, you know, the voice, the perspective of stories being told from, theme, symbolism, shit like that. And I really got into, like, you know, back then it was The Dubliners by James Joyce and The Zoo Story by Albee and shit like that. Hills Like White Elephants, I forget who wrote it. It was a short story about perception. And that stuff never left me. And I thought, I just loved him, you know, after I graduated, years after I graduated, he'd come see me in plays, and we'd go for beers and shoot the shit about life and this and that. And I just thought he had such an interesting mind, and a mind that I admired, and he helped form my mind, I think, to some degree. And I thought, oh, what a great thing he did for me. And if I could do that for some kids like me, who, socially, the world I grew up in, the streets, more or less, nobody gave a fuck if you could read. They cared if you could drink, if you could.
Hey guys, you guys want to read Moby Dick with me?
Yeah, exactly.
No.
No, that's not going to happen. But there was something that I really, I was kind of like a closet smart guy, like I'd get good grades, and then on the weekends we'd all get drunk and go punch windows out and stupid kid shit. But the true me, I think, is maybe too cerebral, but he lives up here more than down here, and so I had to hide behind these.
That's interesting. There's that conflict in you. You grew up in a pretty tough environment, and you were a tough person to an extent. You were a boxer.
I was a boxer, but that, I was a boxer as a direct result of not being a tough guy. I was a bit of a soft kid and a mama's boy, and I just wanted to sit on the couch and watch old movies with my mom and stuff, and my dad was like, he's like, I'm gonna toughen this fucking kid up. So he's the one who put me in sports, and before boxing, I did karate when I was a little, like 7, 8 year old or whatever, and I got self-conscious about wearing the karate gear, and my dad's like, okay, well, we're gonna fucking box. And I boxed for like 5, 6, 7 years, and I was pretty good, but I never had, if I was a boxer now, I think I could kill people. You know what I mean? Like over the years I became, life gets to you, and you just wanna, I'm Italian, I'm from Scarborough, so, it's, my impulse now is to want to fight. I don't actually want to fight.
Okay, good. I got scared for a second. I'm like, should I get
mad? I just want to fucking smash things, and until I talk to myself and say, oh, you actually don't want that. What you want is for the issue to resolve itself. And so I'm glad now, that my dad did put me through that and toughen me up, because to a large degree, it's now a part of definitely who I am, but I play those types of parts because I look like this type of guy, I went to school in New York, so also if I need to, I can start talking to you like I'm a native from fucking Brooklyn or the Bronx or whatever. So you combine that with the ability to fucking handle yourself or intimidate somebody, and suddenly you're very castable, especially to Americans,
And Scorsese.
And Scorsese, somehow he's missed me up till now, but Americans, when they come shoot here, I can save them a hotel and airfare if you need to cast a cop or a detective, or I'm getting higher up in the mafia as I get older. I started out with 2 lines and a gun, and over time I'll eventually get to be the boss.
Right. So you were trying to be tough, but that kind of conflicts with wanting to be an actor.
Yeah.
Was it difficult for you to admit that you wanted to be an actor in the environment that you grew up in?
I mean, I never would have pursued acting. It came to me. I told the story a million times, so I won't tell it again, but somebody else suggested that I pursue it. Catherine Smith, who was a TA at U of T, saw me do a play and said, you should really do this. You could do this. And I think in the back of my mind, she was telling me something I've been waiting to hear my whole life. But where I came from, that wasn't a thing you did. That wasn't a thing people pursued. And even when I went to university and all my friends, mostly had gone on to do trades or college or other things, suddenly my immediate circle of guys weren't around me. And there was freedom to pursue that if I wanted to, but I still, was an English major, and I took a drama minor, because that thing was still sort of niggling, I think is the word, away in the back of my mind. Thinking like, I'd like to dip my toe in this a little bit. And so when Kathy said to me, you should pursue this, and she said, and you should pursue it in New York. You should go to New York. I think that would be good for you, and I think ultimately, if you commit yourself, you could probably make a living doing this eventually for the rest of your life. And I've done fairly well by it. Some good years, some bad years, but I've done pretty well by it. But you're right in that being a tough guy is a lot about not showing yourself. It's about, sort of this fucking nothing stare where you dare anybody to fucking cross that line. And acting is the complete opposite. It's about opening yourself up and revealing who you actually are to people, which is, there's definitely a hurdle when I was younger, and it's I don't think it's an easy thing for any young person to do. We tend to not want to stand out. We want to fit in, and I don't think I was great at it in the beginning, but over time, you just become more comfortable with who you are and what you're doing, and generally speaking, now I'm pretty happy with the work I do. Sometimes I'm not entirely happy with what I'm doing it in, but you got to pay your fucking bills.
So your first credit as an extra was, this will blow some people's minds, The Sea of Love.
Yeah, that's right.
With Al Pacino,
That's right.
and you were sitting next to Samuel Jackson.
Samuel Jackson. He wasn't even Samuel Jackson yet.
He wasn't even Samuel Jackson. The funny thing is, I realized that when I was watching the AFI
That's
for
right,
Pacino.
That's right.
And I was watching it a few days ago,
Okay.
and I happened to see the young
I'm
you
surprised
there.
you recognized me, because I don't look that way anymore. I had, again, I was always interested in movies. I was always interested, like my first role on stage was in grade 6, and I played Cinderella in the school play. We had a sausage-heavy class, so I was cast as Cinderella. Andy Giorgio and Greg Joseph were my ugly stepsisters, and Eddie Iwascu was Prince Charming. So we did it in drag and got a lot of laughs, and I think I definitely got bit by the bug then, and but filed it away.
Will you ever reprise the role of Cinderella? Is that off the table?
I don't know if anyone wants to fucking see that, but
We can make it happen.
show me the money. Fuck, I forget what I was saying. So around like 17, 18, something like that, I started like dabbling and looking into, those ads in the back of the fucking, when there was newspapers, extras wanted, or, pursue that. And so I signed up with a background act, I think we were still called Extras back then, agency, and happened to end up on the set of Sea of Love. And I don't even remember who picked me, but somebody told me, you sit beside Samuel Jackson. And so we shot that scene for a week. And Samuel Jackson, I remember thinking, because I was in love with the guy. He was just so charming and funny and alive and electric. And he had like a fuck all part, but he was the focus of that one scene. And just a really great guy. And so years later, my mom was watching the Al Pacino AFI tribute or whatever the fuck it is. And she's like, and she calls me and she goes, "You're on the Al Pacino thing." And I'm like, yeah, totally by accident, but yeah, there I was. And I also remember, because they shot, we were all that was shot in the Masonic Temple. And we were all looking that way while they were shooting Pacino. And I don't remember how many fucking days Pacino we watched do his thing. But I remember when they turned the camera around and for our reactions, it felt like he was looking right at me, although I'm sure he wasn't. But he was probably looking at Samuel Jackson. And he goes, "Now it's your turn." And I was like, me? He's talking to me? I actually met him 3 times in my life. And one time we had a nice little conversation. He's very like with you and listening and encouraging and positive and stuff like that. It was while they were shooting Glen Ross, and I was a student in New York and happened to be at some art exhibit, and there he was, and he was a really decent guy. It was a real thrill to spend some time, maybe 5 minutes having a little chat.
First movie with Pacino, that's not bad. That's really not bad.
Yeah, well, it'd be better if you actually do something in it, but yeah, it was.
But you went on to do your first big movie with Wesley Snipes.
That's right.
Murder in 1600.
That's right. Who was also a fantastic guy. Wesley Snipes, while we were working on that film, I said to him, after enough time, I was still really super fucking shy and nervous to talk to somebody famous. That was my first big Hollywood film. And I said to him, "Last time I saw you, I was carrying your bags at the Royalton Hotel." And he goes, "Good for you, man, good for you." And he was really supportive and really kind and a real pro. I remember, I'll never forget, like, we shot me first and then him. And everything he did on his coverage, he did off camera for me. So I remember noting that, like, how generous that was. And then, as the years went on, I realized some actors of that status or caliber, especially in the 80s, they would just fuck off and leave you with a script supervisor. Really, yeah, have a good take. But yeah, Snipes was, it was a thrill. At that time, it was still very much brand new, and it was all really super exciting. Just to be there, you know what I mean? I was becoming an actor, but I was also just a fan to some degree. And now I've been around for 30 some odd years, and now when I show up, it's the work that excites me. It's finding a moment or finding, an angle or coming up with maybe an ad lib or an improvised line those are the exciting discoveries. But back then it was just like, holy fuck, that's Wesley Snipes,
That's interesting. It's a discovery. You don't know it beforehand. You go and do you figure that out while you're there? But probably doesn't come to you easily. You have to do a lot of research and practice, right?
Well, it depends. Again, like, the way I approach things has evolved over time. I'm teaching classes now a lot too, and I think back then I did what a lot of people I see who come to my classes now do, is learn your lines and learn how you want to say them, and that's what you do. And now I show up and I kind of know my lines, and I kind of have an idea of what I might try to do, but I can't wait to get there to see, like, okay, how can we fuck around with this, and if you hit it off with the other actor, he might say, especially if they're not a celebrity, but if they have, if they're the lead, if they have some juice or some status, they might say, like, I don't want to say that, and I'm like, okay, well, how about we do this? Or you start collaborating and trying to find something better. You know, there's always, to some degree, more in television than film, you know, it's, if they're writing 30 fucking scripts, they're not all gold. So you might be like, we don't need to fucking say this, or maybe it'd be funny if we did that, or maybe something just happens by accident. And that's exciting. Like discoveries, when you actually capture a discovery on film, it's fucking cool. And then you got to try to replicate it, which is part of the craft, you know, make it always feel like a discovery, make it always feel like it's just happening in the moment. And yeah, so it shifts. It shifts
trying to capture
over time.
that lightning in a bottle.
Yeah, you know, it's like I say this to my classes all the time. Acting isn't pretending. It isn't imagining. Acting is doing. It's behaving. So I try to identify, what am I doing in the scene? Like not just like know what's happening in the scene. Like, you know, say for example, if the scripted line is hello, you can do anything with hello. You can dismiss someone, you can embrace someone, you can eviscerate someone, you can deny someone, you could stonewall someone. Like, there's a billion fucking, you can do any verb you can attach to the word hello, that's what you do. But you show the word hello, you hand that line to somebody who doesn't know how to act, and they're all gonna go, hello, like they're gonna greet you, I greet you. Mm-hmm. But you know, if we have a history, you fucked my wife, you killed my kid, you know, hello, that's gonna be a different hello. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And that's a large part of the prep I do isn't research so much, it's just figuring out my map that I want to follow in pursuing my objective in the scene. And then that's my half of the tennis match. And then I just have to watch what the fuck you do, and we just keep hitting the ball back and forth until somebody calls cut.
Right. And you talk about the Meisner Technique. Yeah. Is that a helpful way to figure out how to say the hello in a dramatic way, or what is that?
Meisner, I mean, in my mind anyway, Meisner is all about learning how to listen and to not, you know, again, young actors are going to be, if we're in a scene, a young actor might be thinking about what his next line is and trying to remember where to say it, and that's all it's about. So you're not actually in the moment, you know? So if I'm really listening to you and I really want something from you, I'm paying attention to you to see, am I getting closer to, you know, say I want to, I don't know, the most obvious thing, say you want to sleep with someone, and part of what you're doing is manipulating, seducing, charming, entertaining, maybe trying to make some physical contact or whatever, and then you read the other person to see how it's going, as you would in life. And that's kind of, if all your attention is on the other person, then you're not in your own head, and you're freer, and you're doing what you would do in life. I don't know, right now, sitting here with you, I haven't got a fucking clue what the next word out of my mouth is gonna be. But when you're acting, of course, the ideal is you know the lines so well that you forget you know them. And it gets to a point where we're actually having a conversation that's been written, but it feels like it hasn't been written.
Yeah.
And so that's, I'm starting to lose myself. I get bored of my own fucking voice. But
that's interesting what you're saying.
But that's so Meisner, you know, it's all about your shirt is black, your shirt is black, your shirt is black. But really it's just not, it's getting me out of my own fucking head. So all my attention is on you. All my attention is on pursuing what's written for me to pursue in the scene. And I should be free. And if it doesn't work, you say call cut and then you go again.
And you mentioned something very interesting about, you know the lines, but at a certain point,
you don't ever want to be thinking about them.
want to be thinking about them.
You don't want to be thinking about it. And the lines don't fucking matter, mostly. You know, what's important are the beats, and what's important are, you know, people get hung up on how do you memorizing lines. I never memorize lines. I know what I want to do. That I have my actions. You know, that's the verbs that I was talking about before. I assign a verb to everything I'm doing, and I don't have to be glued to it, but that's my map. That's how I plan to approach the scene and pursue what I'm trying to get from you in the scene.
Like the character speaks through you.
Yeah.
Sometimes. Has that ever happened to you? Because I've heard about Denzel Washington and Malcolm X. He was doing a big speech, and he was talking for 5 minutes, the words of Malcolm, and then he went on another 5 minutes.
Right.
And then Spike Lee said that those 5 minutes that he went on for were not from the speech of Malcolm X, but it was even better than what Malcolm X had said.
Yeah,
it was
cool.
like the character was speaking through
Well,
him.
that's a different thing. When you're portraying somebody who actually existed, you know, Jim Carrey and Man on the Moon. You know, well, that's one approach. Jamie Foxx as Ray Charles, to like actually nail that person, the kid who played Elvis in that movie, is fucking amazing. But it's also, it's there's kind of three different things to me. There's that, you know, you're going to play that person, and you're going to be judged by how close did you get. Then there's like the Dustin Hoffman, Daniel Day-Lewis, Meryl Streeps, who completely transform into these fictional characters that Gary Oldman obviously done a lot of thought on and discovered or invented. And then there's a third kind of acting, which I think is primarily what I do, which is try to find the character in whatever corner of myself. You know what I mean? So, I'm sitting here talking to you right now as a guy who knows you a little bit and as an actor, and but you know, in any particular film, I could be playing a soldier who's going to fucking get something out of you. I could be playing a father. I could be playing a mentor. I could be playing a follower. You know, so then I just sort of tap into that component of myself and try to bring that to what I'm doing, versus trying to create a character. I try to find the part of me that most connects to that character, so that I can be authentic. And you know, if it is love or passion, it'll be my love or passion. You know, it won't be like trying to think, oh, how would a postman fall in love? You know what I mean? It's just like, well, if I'm a fucking postman, Mamet in his book True and False says the postman uniform does most of that work. I don't have to convince you I'm a postman.
That's funny.
You know what I mean? But if I hate you, I want that to come from a place of truth, so that you read it as a place of truth. I mean, what we do essentially, on stage or on film for the most part, is make the made up believable. You know, I think the imagination component of it is there, but that primarily is what the writer is doing. So then he hands you this made up world, and my job is to make the viewer believe that it isn't a made up world. So the more of my true whatever I can bring to it, the better, versus a fucking Daniel Day-Lewis who's, you know, sitting in a fucking chair and he's completely believable, but that's a whole different thing, you know what I mean?
He'll go and be a postman for 3 months.
Yeah, that's right. He's a fucking shoe cobbler, right?
Meanwhile, you just have to wear the uniform, and the audience.
Put it on, yeah.
It's about believing. It makes the audience believe.
Yeah.
That
I don't have
what
to
you're doing
think my
is
name
real.
is Steve if everyone's calling me Steve. That the script does that, right?
But then again, Daniel Day-Lewis, I don't mean to any disrespect, because his performance in There Will Be Blood is maybe the greatest film performance, in my opinion, that I have ever seen.
Did you just see that thing? It was going around the other day on whatever the fuck, Instagram or something. And he said who was it? Paul Thomas Anderson directed that?
Yeah.
They sat down after a week and watched the rushes, and I think Paul Thomas Anderson was trying to say, I'm like, I don't like what you're doing, but he was watching it and he was like, oh, I don't like what I'm doing either. So they adjusted the frequency or the levels of what he was doing, and went from there. So, yeah, I thought he was phenomenal in that film. I think he's phenomenal in most things. Some of the films I just don't give a fuck about, but yeah, he's one of the greats for sure. There's something hypnotic about a guy who can transform like that. You know, Dustin Hoffman did it a lot too. But I don't need that. You know, mostly what attracts me to anything is a story. You know, a simple human story. I don't watch Marvel movies. I don't watch action movies. I've seen one or two. You know, I'll check out anything, but I'm not in a fucking hurry to rush out and see them. I like little films. I like, you know, in my dream world, those are the kind of things I'm working on and doing. I don't need to do chase scenes or fight scenes. I think I've been killed like 50, 60 fucking times on film already.
You're like a cat. You have a million lives.
Yeah. A cat or a Canadian actor.
Or a
Same
Canadian
thing.
actor. So it's a kind of a cliche to say this, but sometimes when you play a dark role, it does invade you, is what a lot of people say.
Yeah.
And it's not obvious to me how you can avoid having that dark role invade you sometimes, because like you said, you have to find that within yourself and then bring it out.
Yeah.
Like we look at Heath Ledger, who played the Joker. And he had to go to some dark places to get to that point, and it did overwhelm him.
Well, you combine that with fucking drugs, and that's a dangerous
that's
combination.
The other thing.
That's a dangerous combination. Because, you know, everyone's acting all the time. If you go on a fucking date, you're acting. If you meet somebody's parents, you're acting. If you go to a job interview, you're acting. Like, you're always choosing the you that you present. So, you know, that darkness or that aggression or menace or whatever the fuck this is, you know, I can access that easily because I've been accessing it my whole life. You know, before I ever was an actor.
You had to do it to survive in the place you were growing up.
I mean, it's not like I grew up in fucking Harlem, but yeah, Scarborough was a tough enough place. You know, we traveled in gangs and, you know, we fucked with people and they fucked with us, but we wouldn't, I don't think it was any different than Whitby or fucking Oshawa. It's just, you know, we had different people there.
Scorsese, please cast this man. He grew up in a gang. He's a classic Italian. Let's do it.
Well, Scorsese's, God love that guy. He's made, you know, as we discussed the other day, some of my favorite fucking films. My 5 favorite all-time films are Rocky, Raging Bull, Taxi Driver, The Godfather, and It's a Wonderful Life. Those are my 5 favorite all-time films. I've seen probably each one of those films 50 times to 100 times each. So yeah, Scorsese's, he's made some of my favorite movies of all time. Others I couldn't give a fuck less about. But in terms of a batting average, I think he's had a phenomenal career, and he'll be remembered for as long as people remember anyone. You know? Yeah,
and you talk about Raging Bull and Taxi Driver. What was it about those 2 performances? Because I know you've studied them. That appealed to you so much. There's the Niro performances.
Yeah, you know, I think the night before I auditioned for the school I went to in New York, the American Academy of Dramatic Arts, I couldn't sleep. I was so fucking nervous. Turns out they'll let anybody in, but I didn't know that, and I couldn't sleep, so I watched Taxi Driver and Raging Bull the night before the morning when I went in for that audition. I mean, both of those movies are about loners, they're about outsiders, they're about broken, damaged men. The only way Jake LaMotta expressed himself was violently, you know? And Travis Bickle, you know, it says on the movie poster, I think, I think I have the Italian one in my living room. Down every street, God, I'm gonna cry. Fuck. Down every street, there is a man who wants to prove that he exists, or something to that effect. And I remember
there's always a nobody who wants to be a somebody.
Yeah. Well, you just want to, you know, he has that scene with Peter Boyle, Wizard. And he's like, I don't know, you know, I just feel like I want to do something. I get these thoughts, and I want to, you know what I mean? He's not articulate. He's not a guy. Travis is not a guy who can express himself verbally at all. He socially has no fucking clue. You know, he takes Betsy to a fucking porn theater, and he thinks that's normal. Like, he doesn't have any friends. He lives in this tiny little shithole of an apartment, staring at a little fucking, you know, 8-inch TV and watching, you know, what is it, Soul Train, watching people slow dance to, what's his name, Jackson Brown's Late for the Sky, and it's beautiful. But something is growing in him. Like he needs to do something. He needs to make some kind of mark, and you know, accidentally becomes a hero when really he's kind of a sociopath, or maybe not a sociopath, but a psychopath, or, you know, people don't fucking generally think, you know what I should do is cut off a piece of my typewriter and put it on a cast and have a gun ready to go. You know what I mean? There's a paranoia.
Not yet.
Yeah.
Not yet for me.
He also had been to Vietnam, though, right?
Right.
That character. So I think that also might speak to some kind of PTSD or something that is never named. But, you know, everyone's trying to make sense of something, and maybe, and you know, I think he did set out to be a hero, but he set out about it in all the wrong ways, and then accidentally accomplished it. You know, which right. I think it's meant to be ironic. I've heard people, the odd online discussion talk about, you know, was that real, that ending? What did that mean? And I was like, what the fuck are you talking about? You know, I can't stand when people have theories about, like, the Joker. If it wasn't in the fucking movie, then it wasn't, you know, it's like, oh, I don't think any of that was real. That was made up, and that was, like, no, whatever is in the fucking movie is in the movie.
Yeah, but it's my interpretation of it. It's like, oh, relax. The movie has its, there's logic still exists. Yeah. Just because it's a movie doesn't mean that you can view it in any way that you want. But
was that part real? Well, did it say it was not real? If it didn't say it wasn't real, it was fucking real.
Yeah.
I mean, none of it's real. It's a fucking movie.
Yeah.
know?
How does I know you're a theater actor.
Yeah.
How does that compare to the movies that you work on? Is theater more of the work that feeds your soul, or?
No, I don't think necessarily. I think in terms of the craft, you do all the same work. There's something really, you know, it's safer to work on film. In other ways, it's difficult because, you know, there could be 300 people sitting around picking their nose and eating sandwiches while you do it, and you have to get used to that. But if you fuck up, you do it again. On stage, if you fuck up, you're fucking up in front of a live audience, and you gotta figure it out. The camera is the eye, right? That you're playing to on film, and the levels that you play are different. You know, on stage you need to make sure that they can hear you in the back row. Where on film, the microphone is right fucking here, so I don't have to do anything. I can whisper my fucking lines, You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which there can be power in or not. You need to deliver. You need to deliver in either case. My favorite definition of theater, and I've said this in a couple of whatever the fuck this is that theater is the event that takes place midway between the audience and the action on the stage. And there's a truth in that. Like what I'm doing without an audience is fucking masturbation. And what you're watching, how you watch it, and the energy I'm putting out, and the collective energy that's receiving it, and maybe giving back a laugh, maybe giving back a ooh, maybe giving back holding their breath. You feed on that. That's your fuel on stage. And that dictates why Tuesday night's show was different from Wednesday night's show. It's a living thing, you know? And when that show is over, it only exists in memory. And there's something really fucking amazing about what? I mean, it's like fucking. It's like anything. You know, this is a moment, and we shared it, and now it's a memory. Whereas film is, you know, much more controlled by a director or by an editor, or, you know, you can shoot the same movie and edit it 12 different ways and make it, you know, put a different soundtrack on it, put a different swing. You can do whatever you want with that raw footage. But what happens between an audience and a cast on a stage is only ever going to happen in that one moment on that one night, you know? So that's primarily the difference for me. But in terms of how I do it, it's the same approach. Just the execution will be modulated because of the technology versus being on stage or...
And also the transfer, it's interesting you mentioned the energy. The energy of you goes into the audience. It's kind of like, is it a bit like a transfer of energy sometimes? Absolutely,
yeah. So it's a meeting of energies. You know, I mean, to whatever degree, this conversation is theater, you know. There's a back and forth to it. I mean, we're sort of cast members together here, and, you know, you're my audience, I'm your audience, so that's, you know, people talk about the ball, you know, throwing each other the ball, keeping the ball up in the air, don't drop the ball. And that's what actors do on stage. That's what's exciting, is to watch a story, not be told a story, to observe something happening, and then to be in the room and have that the immediacy of it. It's not just that I'm watching a thing, I'm watching it happen live in front of me, you know? That's fucking cool. And I'm a part of it, you know? So that's why, you know, I can, if I'm watching TV, I don't have to be quiet, you know? I don't have to sit, I can pause it, I can do whatever the fuck I want. But in the theater, you know, there's especially when it's good, there's like an unspoken agreement that everybody fucking pay attention. Like let's all direct our focus and energy there. And on stage, you can feel that. You can feel when people start getting bored and, you know, shifting. And you hear every, you know, and when if you're in a comedy and nobody's laughing, that's the longest fucking night of your life.
What does it feel like when people are giving you that attention, when their focus is all on you? Is it overwhelming? Does it excite you? What is it like?
It's both. Yeah, it's terrifying and exciting. What the fuck is that noise?
Fuck, it sounds like a robot. Is that R2-D2? So with 5/7,
yeah,
it's a very different kind of working than what I would imagine would be a traditional way of doing a film. For Faking a Murder and this upcoming sequel to it,
yeah.
You don't really have a script.
No.
You go off of your wits. What is it like working like that?
Yeah, I love those guys. I really love those guys. They're, you know, there's a goal every time we go into a scene. Like, I know what I want in the scene, and they know what they want in the scene, or whoever's in the scene, and so it's like I said before. I think I said it here. I'm not sure. The words don't fucking matter. You know what I mean? As long as the scene works. You know, if I say, "Hey, get the fuck out of here," or "Why don't you leave," or the words don't matter, as long as that thought is communicated. So it frees things up a bit, and you know, sometimes it falls flat on its face, but when it works, it really works. You know, in Faking a Murderer, when I was in the bedroom with Stu, and I just went fucking nuts, you know, like jumping on him and fucking licking his mouth and just doing shit I knew would bug the fuck out of him. Filtered through, you know, again, like I'm playing a character, but it's really just me thinking like, really fuck with this guy, you know, really fuck with this guy. And it's not a thing I would ever do or even think to do, but
I would hope not.
Yeah, but in that moment, I don't know, I just started barking and licking and spitting and whatever the fuck else.
What was it like working on Vandits, where it was more of a traditional script?
Yeah, there was a script there. Vandits, I really enjoyed it. You know, I loved the concept, like the stoner. I don't want to give too much away, but I like the silliness of it, but also the heart of it. You know, like that film's got a lot of heart, and I thought it worked. You know, I mean, Vandits is kind of like, I kind of have the least interesting part in Vandits because I'm kind of I'm the lead, but it's all the people around me that are interesting. Like Enrico is great, Rob is great, Jan Arden is great, Stewie as the fucking elf is great, Adam as the cop are great. Even that guy Roy, the black dude with the gun,
he was so
killer. He was killer. But yeah, like, and that's a bunch of people that I really liked, and you know, mostly it was written in the script, but we're all trying to crack each other up, and we're not glued to the script per se. There's a freedom there, but when it works, don't fucking touch it. You know, when it works, just ride it. And when it doesn't work, Stu is an awesome guy. I love working with him as a director. I always call him my Scorsese, because I can say to him, I don't fucking like this. Doesn't work. Let's do something else. So he's like, yeah, do whatever the fuck you want. You know, and we eventually figure out what we both like. I think we both have similar sensibilities in terms of when it's working and when it isn't.
Hopefully he doesn't find a DiCaprio. It's like the De Niro situation.
Yeah.
Bye-bye, we found Leo.
That's right. Well, it's bound to happen eventually, but you know, I think we're probably a couple of movies away from that still.
Yeah. Okay, well, I could go on for a very long time. And I love to talk more about your career.
Sure.
But it was so interesting when we started talking about the acting that I had a lot of questions on here about what was it like working on Four Brothers? What was it like working on the Saw movies and all that?
But you know what? People always ask me that shit, and I'm happy to talk to about it because people are interested in it. But to me, I could talk about acting all fucking day. I really could. To someone who wants to hear it. You know, I don't go around talking about it. I don't think anyone gives a fuck, you know? I don't. When people find it interesting, I'm happy to talk about anything they want to talk about. But I don't walk around thinking, I'm so interesting because I'm an actor. You know what I mean? Like, I'm gonna die and nobody will even fucking give a shit or remember this at some point in time. But I'm really glad in the amount of time that I have been allotted that this is the thing I get to do with it.
Tony, it was a pleasure. Thank you so much
Thanks,
for your
President.
time.
I love you, buddy.
I love you.
Yeah,
Thanks.